our friend, our friend Danny Boy, who got to watch his Miami Hurricanes lose to the Indiana Hoosiers of all teams in the college championship, asked Gary Cobb a question, did not get the answer he wanted, which is kind of funny. But don't worry, we're actually not here to do yet another video on Dan hating on Jalen Hurts. Although, of course, the question is about Jalen Hurts. I want to listen to what Gary Cobb said because it made me think of a few things that I think are really important that we need to keep in mind going forward for the Philadelphia Eagles as a team as they hunt for an offensive coordinator. Because Gary makes some really good points. First of all, he does. I'll won't keep you in suspense. He actually praises Jalen Hurts, which is refreshing from local Philly Eagles media for sure. But that in talking about it, it made me think of a few other things that are kind of worrisome for whether or not we're going to get what we need in that position to set the Eagles up for a good 2026. And then also a little bit of my dream if we can get it right. It's the off season. The off season is dream season for fans. We get to do a lot of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. So we'll get into that as well because I think it's really important. And I'm curious what you all think about what Gary says and the implications for the Eagles going forward in their hunt for an offensive coordinator. By the way, as always, I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all your support, everyone liking and subscribing and commenting below the videos. I do go and read all of them. Sometimes I'm a little delayed, but I do go and read all of them. So I do appreciate it. So let's dig in. We're going to listen to Gary first. It's about a minute. It's only about a minute long, if that. And then we'll get into on some of the things that he said. Now, he's not actively addressing those things, but it makes you think about them as the Eagles look for an offensive coordinator. So here we go.
Gary, do you think we've seen the best of Jalen Hurts?
No, I don't think so. No, no.
Do you think there's another level?
Yeah, I think there's another level. I think that he could take his game up to another level, and I think that's where you need a good, aggressive offensive coordinator to do that. To where, like I said, they going to the line of scrimmage and letting him call the plays at the line of scrimmage and being more aggressive. They they've got enough weapons, and I think they'll probably. I want to see them get a couple of young tight ends, both for catching the ball and blocking. And I think they go together. If you see the Rams, you see what they're doing with their tight ends, where they got a running game and they utilize those tight ends. I think the Eagles can do that. They really can. Where you got a couple of good young tight ends who block and go out and they catch the football. It puts a lot of pressure on the defense.
First, let me say this about Gary. I agree actually with everything he says. I know that's wild coming from an Eagles fan with local Philly sports media. Although the first one I'd like to correct when he says Jalen Hurts can take things to another level. I think we've already seen that, right? I think this was a step back. I think we've already seen that other level, even without Saquon Barkley, because we saw it back in 2022, even a lot in 2023. The difference in 2023 was there were a lot more interceptions it was an uncharacteristic season for Jalen Hurts with the interceptions. But he threw the ball a lot. He threw it successfully in terms of yards, yards per attempt, that sort of thing. Obviously, had an incredible 2022 as well. So I think it's more about getting him back to that level. And of course, there are always things that you can improve upon. So maybe it's even beyond that. But he's been at another level before this season. We had a huge step back because of absolutely horrifically bad play calling, but not just play calling. To be fair, right? The offensive line wasn't as good. Lane Johnson being hurt, Cam Jurgens was terrible. Um, you know the we know about the issues with the receivers, also with the tight ends. I definitely need two. I don't think Dallas Goedert will be back because I believe he wanted an extension last year. The Eagles didn't want to pay him. Then he goes out and has 11 touchdowns this season. So I don't know if the money is going to be there for Dallas Goddard. So they may very well need a couple of tight ends. I think good pass catching tight ends absolutely wreak havoc on defenses because you can get a lot of mismatches. The linebacker might not be able to run with him. The safety might be too small for him. And you get into all those things. So I think that is important as well. Now, here's the thing about, and I agree with being more aggressive too. Here are the problems inherent. This is what I'm talking about, which is like the big red flag for the Eagles next season. there is a lot of competition out there, right? This is a season, a lot between head coaches and offensive coordinators. There are a lot of other places, and a lot of times in this pass heavy, rules slanted toward the offense era, usually teams are trying to get an offensive mind, an offensive wizard as a head coach, right? So that can kind of take up offensive coordinators like Kevin Stefanski, for example, going to Atlanta, although not a lot of people didn't want him just because of the issues he had this season. Ooh, almost knocked my camera over. The issues he had this season with Shador Sanders and so forth. But he would be a good offensive coordinator. He got a head coaching job. So now I know some of these may officially be filled already, but I'm just thinking where we've had changes, and the reason I'm including ones that are filled is because that is competition for the Eagles, right? Those had to be filled. We had with head coaching alone, I think this is the latest. We have Cardinals, Dolphins, Bills, Browns, Steelers, Ravens, Titans, Raiders, Giants, Falcons, and then offensive coordinators, right? Eagles, obviously. I think we have the Lions, the Bucks, the Chargers, maybe the Chiefs, right? Matt, I just blanked on Matt's last name, but you know who I'm talking about. I think his contract has expired. I don't think they've renewed it yet, so it hasn't. I don't think he's been let go, but I don't think they've re-signed him either. So between the competition, and then here's the other big thing when he talked about being more aggressive. Nick Sirianni, as we have found out, may be the most conservative coach in NFL history in terms of offensive philosophy. We know he tried play calling and it was a disaster. We know that the reason he hired Kevin Patullo was so that he could still very much influence and run his offense, but not take the heat and the responsibility when it failed. How he made a huge mistake. Hopefully, how he learned. Because not only is there a lot of competition out there in terms of jobs, but you have what might be good people are looking in Philadelphia and look, they're not saying, oh, well, I don't, Jalen Hurts isn't very good. I don't want to coach Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts can only run a very limited offense. That they are not good offensive coordinators that could get NFL jobs are not thinking that about Jalen Hurts. But they are thinking, well, with what I'm seeing there, I don't know. I'm not sure enough that I'm going to be able to have enough autonomy, that I'm going to be able to have enough freedom to run the offense I want to run the offense I see fit to run the offense that I think is going to be best for the team, to make the play calls that I think is going to be most effective because they've all seen the influence that Nick Sirianni has on the team and on the play calling and on the philosophy. And that's why we're going to get, things like between the competition and Nick, we're going to get things like Eagles offensive coordinator search reportedly includes Josh Grizzard, I believe, involved in the Tampa Bay. I think, man, I hope I have the right guy. I believe the guy who's involved in, like passing coordinator or something for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? We've got Bobby Slowick, was one of the hottest OCs in the NFL after a season with the Texans in 23, had a season under Mike McDaniel. He's a New Jersey native. So that's someone else that they're looking at. Oh, he's the guy. He was the senior passing game coordinator for the Dolphins. So I might be confusing what Josh Grizzard's actual title was. We've got Eagles interview, Giants interim head coach, offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. We've got I do this all the time because the name sounds like it's right out of a movie. The guy from the Colts, Jim Bob. Oh my God, I want to say Jim Bob Cooter. You know who I'm talking about, though, right? So we're looking at a bunch of guys like that. So here's the last thing I want to leave you with. I'm curious what you all think about all of this in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on Gary Cobb's positioning, how you think that impacts who we might get as offensive coordinator, having Nick Sirianni here, and the autonomy or freedom they might or might not have. But here's my final thing. A little bit of a pat on the back here for me because I mentioned this a while ago. I've just recently seen some other people bring up the names. I know he's never done it, never had play calling. But if we're going to go look at some of these people that I just mentioned, then I say the hell with it. Let's just go all in on a guy who's going to have a lot of goodwill at the beginning and we know is going to be aggressive in his play calling because we know that's who he is. Nick Foles, if was willing to take the job, Nick Foles, offensive coordinator, Philadelphia Eagles, I think that is a much, much better choice than settling for, number 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever on some list that may very well just be listening to Nick Sirianni anyway. That's what I'm going to finish up with. It is the off season, which means it is dream season for Philadelphia Eagles fans and all sports fans for their teams. Next year the possibilities are endless. There is no ceiling. Nick Foles, offensive coordinator, he's going to and of course give him the freedom and give him the autonomy to run the offense he wants to run. Obviously, he knows what Jalen Hurts goes through at the quarterback position. I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on all those comments below. And for your dream, who would you want that's available, right? Not someone that's already employed somewhere. Who do you want as offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate it as always. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Really do appreciate it. I will talk to you later.